You a big Corn fan?
Corn?
Corn.
No, not really.
You missed it.
That was your rehearsal.
No, you missed it. One media session. You get 2 words then. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
What'd you fix?
Wow. That's one of your.
How well have you fit into this team, and how comfortable are you with this group of guys?
How comfortable am I? I'm pretty comfortable. How well I fit in, I feel like that's a question for everybody else.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Marty Time TV and the Section 1904 podcast. I am Marty Caswell. God, I hope I'm not frozen. And that is at D. Smith Show. Darren Smith. We are brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Let me try that again. We are brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. And I'm laughing because Darren's face is telling me that I'm frozen. Am I frozen?
I wouldn't say that you are frozen, but we definitely have some AOL chat room kind of vibes going on here, just minus the just, kind of pixelated a little bit. Not as, I don't know what it is, Marty. I don't know what it is about this collaboration, but the technology gods seem to be working against you in some capacity. I can say this because, I'm a glass half full guy. It is better than it was the other day.
That's not very comforting because that was really, really bad. That was rough. That was standard def. So anyways.
Yeah.
All right. We'll figure this out.
Okay, good. Well, let's just talk through it. Again, maybe this will push people in the direction of the podcast that way. If it's somehow distracting or irritating to people that they don't want to watch this on YouTube, on Marty Time TV, they at least have an option to just listen to it where we don't have to spend a ton of time focusing on what it is, how we look, and the distraction of freeze frame. So yeah, maybe we can just push people in that direction as well, since that is essentially the point. But Marty, it is Wednesday. It is tax day. Do you have your taxes done?
Nope. I do not.
No. I don't either. This is the first time in my life that I've ever filed for an extension.
Same here. Oh wow, we're on the same page. It's been a stressful year. It really has. It's been kind of crazy, but anyways, here we are.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't even know how to file my taxes based on the income that I earned in 2025. Like, and my accountant he's like, I don't have the time for it. So maybe we can just push this back a little bit. I really don't, because when you're not just getting a regular paycheck like I have for the last 25 years, but you're getting income and 1099 and you're an independent contractor and you're self-employed and you have an LLC. Like, it's so confusing. I don't know how to do any of it. And my accountant just is like, why don't we just push this back a little bit? So that's what we did. So I don't know exactly when we'll get to that, but for everybody else who's out there scrambling around, I always do appreciate on this day that the local news channels will be by the nearest mailbox watching all these people try to file their tax returns so they can get it in there in the nick of time. Although
usually driving, they have the people in their cars, over the bridge by Rosecrans, but with a cost of gas, I think people will be like on their scooters and their bikes, bringing in their tax returns, filing their taxes. So
yeah, as they should be. All right, things seem to be working out on your end. So let's not jinx it. I do want to just say real quick, because I do want to thank Marty for giving me this opportunity to talk a little golf on this joint venture between Marty Time TV and the Section 1904 podcast, because Rory McIlroy won the Masters over the weekend, his second consecutive Masters. The author of that book, if you're watching on Marty Time TV, is Alan Shipnuck, who's really one of golf's, not just golf, he's really one of sports' great writers. Not that there's a lot of them left these days. But if you like good sports books and good sports authors, Alan Shipnuck is great. Yeah. I've been reading his work for literally, Marty, 30 years. And he does focus a lot on golf. I think the last time we had him on the radio show, he was promoting the book about Mickelson, right? Where Mickelson was talking about the scary motherfuckers that he was dealing with in Saudi Arabia with Live Golf, which appears to be on the verge today of collapse.
Yep.
So it's good timing with Alan Shipnuck that we'll talk about Rory McIlroy's role in defending the PGA Tour against this invasion from Live Golf. But that's some of the reporting today that Live Golf might be collapsing any minute now. So Alan wrote this book about Rory McIlroy. It's tremendously timed because Rory won the Masters last year and he went back to back, just the fourth player ever to go back to back. I guess I don't love talking about television ratings anymore, but I guess this was the most watched Masters in 13 years. So people were into it, and Rory's just, I don't get it. He's a polarizing figure. There's a lot of online abuse of Rory. People really go after him. I don't know if it's because of the whole PGA Tour Live Golf thing. I don't know if it's because he's, a Ryder Cup captain or, a key figure of the Ryder Cup, the European Ryder Cup, but he's, I don't know. Anyhow, I love talking about Rory McIlroy. I don't love talking about all these dorky golfers, but I do like talking about Rory and Alan Shipnuck. I'm looking forward to reading the book. So thank you for allowing me this platform to have Alan on to talk to us a little bit about Rory and the Masters and everything going on. So that'll be on the back half of this episode today after we talk some Padres, I would guess. I guess we would talk some Padres. Darren, where do you want to start today? Do you want to start with Luis Campusano's interesting post game? By the way, I usually have these great conversations with Luis Campusano in spring training because he is not one that likes to go ahead and hang around and do interviews and this and that. And he's a very thoughtful interview. And I'm not sure why Padres fans are surprised when they hear his voice or when they hear him talk about different things or his Bulldogs or whatnot, but he's always very thoughtful. It was my first time talking to him last night, and he had some interesting things to say. We could start with Nick Pivetta, Darren, landing on the injured list with elbow inflammation. Not surprising if you caught our previous show. I know he was first scratched with elbow, was it tightness? No, elbow stiffness. I'm like, what are we talking about there? Pivetta on the IL. Matt Waldron will likely make his first start for the Padres on Friday. Or there is one Padres player who's had enough of the Vedder Cup. I will leave it to you. Where do you want to go? Let's use this opportunity to promote Friar Territory because there is a new one out on Wednesday where we did go a bit deeper on Nick Pivetta. We talked to Heath Bell. Yeah. We talked about Lucas Giolito. So we do want to direct your attention there and not just do the repeat stuff. But I really did. Of all the things I think, Marty, that you posted, the one that made me laugh most was Fernando Tatis Jr. being asked about the Vedder Cup. Can we, for people that might have missed this, because I felt this from Fernando Tatis Jr. yesterday. I did, and it's great to see it. It'll be great to hear it if you're just listening to the podcast, only the audio only version of the show. But I did love this pregame where he was asked about Eddie Vedder specifically.
Last year being a Cubs fan and maybe them picking a different name for this rivalry at all?
I'm the wrong guy to ask about this question. I'm really not into the topic. I just know we gotta go out there and beat Seattle.
Okay, he's just not into the topic. So
over the topic.
Somebody was trying to make the case that Eddie Vedder is a Cubs fan, and yet here he is thrust into this manufactured rivalry between the Padres and the Seattle Mariners called the Vedder Cup. And how do you feel about that? And you could see him roll his eyes. It's so rare.
So good.
Yeah.
This is why you need
just not into this topic.
Listen, you people were asking me about Korn and Mason Miller's entry song, and I had no idea who Korn was. I'm unfamiliar with Korn, and why would you be? And now you're asking me about Eddie Vedder. Who is this guy? You asked me last year. Every single player in that clubhouse had no idea who Pearl Jam was. Eddie Vedder. By the way, I saw Eddie Vedder, Darren, last October because I ran into him in the press box at Wrigley Field because he did the seventh inning stretch for the Cubs.
Yeah. I mean, I get that they've attached some charitable causes to this. Great. Raise some money. That's fantastic. But just in terms of the type of conversation that it creates, you get reporters who are like, oh, Eddie Vedder. And you can tell Fernando's like, I've just never heard him answer a question that way. I am just not into this topic at all. Like, I am not. Do you think I follow Pearl Jam? Like, what? What about me makes you believe that I know anything about Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam? You know what I mean? Like, it's not for me, man. Go talk to our manager. Maybe our manager would be into that. He seems like he's a Pearl Jam guy, probably more the demographic.
I may have missed it, Darren, because I mean, when I'm at Petco Park, I'm just usually distracted by a billion different things. But if I recall this correctly, last year they played a bunch of Pearl Jam music. There was none of that last night, zero of it. And maybe I missed it. I should double check, and maybe they'll do it tonight. But I didn't notice. Usually they promote more of the Vedder Cup. I think that theme has kind of disappeared.
So. I think so. And the reason I'm really harping on Vedder Cup this year is just because I want to say it as many times as I possibly can, ironically, because I'm not into it either. And I'm like much more like Fernando, even though I did like Pearl Jam, when I was in college, which is a million years ago. So, I think it's okay that we don't really have to be married to this. We do not have to be committed to this for the rest of our lives. But I do appreciate the honest body language from Fernando and him just saying, I'm not into this topic. I'm not the right person to talk about this. So, I thought that was very funny. Also funny after the game was your interaction with Luis Campusano.
Yeah, that was good. I will play you a clip from Luis Campusano, but I started off asking him because Michael King, yesterday, another quality start for Michael King. I mean, he's been good in his return, but Michael King talked about just the type of the rapport that he has with Luis Campusano and how much he trusts him. Luis Campusano has essentially become Michael King's personal catcher. And with now put Nick Pivetta on the IL, I'm sure we'll get there shortly as well, Darren. Nick Pivetta made it clear that Freddie Fermin was his personal catcher, but now Matt Waldron's here. I'm sure Waldron and Campusano, they're going to have their history together, of course, going to El Paso. I actually wonder now if we're going to see more from Luis Campusano, more of a 50-50 split than a 60-40 with Freddie Fermin. But Luis Campusano talked about, how much fun he's having, what this is like for him, this experience. My first question to him about what it was like to have a manager that trusts him. Because Craig Stammen, Darren, made a point early on saying that Campusano is a catcher. We're not looking about him being the DH or the idea of him being at first base. He is our catcher. He's going to catch. His bat is going to play. And this is what Luis Campusano, if you can hear behind the construction noise in the background, had to say about Craig Stammen having some faith in him.
He's helped me over the time with catching and some game calling stuff, but he understands. He's been through it. He gets it. He doesn't need a lot as far as just so much information, because you got to see the game and read it and play, right? But that's what he's good with, and he just lets us play and play our game, and wants us to feel free out there.
What's worked for you at the plate, especially since that W down loss?
Just not giving a fuck, really. Just not giving a fuck. Just whatever happens, happens. Just I'm here for a reason. Don't overthink it. Just play the game like you know how to play it.
What did you see from Michael?
What did I see from him?
Yeah.
Am I frozen again? All right, that sounds actually more like a blender to me than construction work. So I'm not sure what that was. So, how long will it take, Darren, for the opportunity?
I think the Property Brothers were in the background there, renovating the Padre clubhouse.
Yeah, maybe so. How long will it take the opportunists to make that into a T-shirt?
T-shirt? What are you talking about? Mural. That's a mural somewhere. Stop giving a fuck. Yeah, that's what I want. I want a Luis Campusano mural somewhere, 3rd Avenue, Chula Vista. Stop giving a fuck. So, yes, I'm all about that. I think that's got to be turned into something more than just this clip that will live on Marty Time television.
Forever.
That's my
maybe and new walk-up music as well. So, good for Campy. 6-game hitting streak, Darren.
Great. I mean, that's 6 more hits than he's had in 2 years. So, yeah, I think it's probably a really good thing for him. And he seems to have a lot of support. So I think that's good as well. It's not just support from managers, it's support from teammates. So, all in all, maybe it took a little longer than people would have anticipated, but here he is now, a guy who I think the Padres, I don't know if they tried to trade him, or maybe there was some talk about trading him or moving on from him. And there was a belief, I know that this to be true, that there's been a belief inside of this organization that this guy could be a productive major leaguer. And he's taken a couple of huge steps towards proving that here early on this season, although we're just talking about 16 games, but he has taken a couple of steps towards that. So good for him.
No, he has.
I like those kind of stories.
He has. I agree as well, Darren. So we'll see what happens. And by the way, if you want to watch the full interview with Luis Campusano on Marty Time TV, it is available there. And I thought I asked him about Freddie Fermin, and he broke out into a smile. He's been awesome. He's been so good to me. If you walk in Luis Campusano used to his locker room was hidden right behind one of those TVs, right? His locker now is right on the other side of Freddie Fermin. So if you're going to walk there in the Padres clubhouse, you have space. You have Freddie Fermin on one side, Luis Campusano on the other side. Those guys are always talking, always in conversation. So it's good to see the camaraderie they have because, Darren, there's been other Padres catchers in the past that wanted no part of mentoring the other catcher in the clubhouse with them.
That was Derek Norris.
Yeah.
So, we don't need to say, that vaguely. Derek Norris was really, by people that have spoken to in the organization, a first-rate asshole towards Austin Hedges in his time here, like mean towards him. And, again, it's big league sports, so I'm not saying, that this is not for the faint of heart, but to hear even some of the former coaches talk about that dynamic was a bit discouraging. So, all righty. I do see Alan is standing by, Marty. So again, I think Rory's kind of a big deal, kind of the biggest name in golf, especially now with a post Phil, post Tiger, and some of these other dudes, frankly, are just I don't know how much they really move the needle. Some of these other really good golfers, but wins his 6th major. Year after winning the career Grand Slam, going back-to-back, joining pretty elite company when you talk about Jack and Tiger and Faldo and now Rory McIlroy going back-to-back. Great Nike ad, by the way. I love Nike, although you can tell I'm an Adidas guy. But a great Nike ad that, the best golfers don't want a green jacket. They want another. I love that slogan there for him. So Alan Shipnuck has a new book out about Rory McIlroy. So let's say hello.
Let's get right to Alan Shipnuck there. And I'm going to bounce out this interview. But before I do, I want to go ahead and show you. There's one guy who'll be excited for this book, and that's Padres manager Craig Stammen. He told us on Sunday before his press conference, no one spoiled the ending because he recorded the Masters. He wanted to go home and watch it in solitude. Before we get to Alan Shipnuck, this is manager Craig Stammen on the Masters and Rory McIlroy. We were warned against spoiling the Masters and getting how to
yeah, thanks for doing that. I had a great Sunday night, finished the Masters about 10:30. Very exciting, great for Rory McIlroy to finish, to go back-to-back, very rare, 4th guy to ever do it in history. So for me as a golf fan, it was fun to sit there and enjoy it by myself.
All right, the name of the book is Rory, The Heartache and Triumph of Golf's Most Human Superstar. I do love the name. Alan Shipnuck, he's the author. He's one of the great storytellers, not just in golf, but in sports. And we do go way back. I did love one of your early books, Blood, Sweat, and Teas, way back in the day. So we talked last time about Phil Mickelson. You've written about live golf, live and let die. And we appreciate you taking some time. Alan, before we get rolling, I do want to ask, what is the best way to order a book in 2026, right? As we're all doing different things. I recently had a friend on who had written a book, and I thought I was doing him a solid by saying I ordered it on Amazon, and he winced a little bit and told me there's a little bit of difference for revenue if you order straight from other websites versus Amazon. You tell us, what's the best way for us to order this book about Rory McIlroy?
Well, I respect your friend's position, but I just want people to read the book. So check it out at the library is fine. Photocopy it. Take pictures on your phone in the bookstore of every page. But yeah, I mean, obviously it's nice to support a local independent bookstore. That's not easy for everybody. So Amazon always works. I'm agnostic. As long as people are reading the book, I'm happy.
Okay, good. Well, I want to make sure that you're making as much money on this as possible because I'm sure you put a ton of time and effort into this, and good for Rory McIlroy for cooperating and understanding the assignment and going back to back at the Masters. What inspired you to write this book, which came out before this year's Masters, obviously, about Rory McIlroy?
Well, the 3 biggest stars in golf since I started covering the tour in 1994, it's Phil, it's Tiger, and it's Rory. And excuse me, as you mentioned, I did a Mickelson biography. In 2012, I published a novel called The Swinger with my great friend Michael Bamberger. It's about a cross-cultural golfing icon whose life goes off the rails in a tabloid-fueled sex scandal. Now, it's all fiction. It's completely made up. At least Simon & Schuster lawyers would insist that we say that. Clearly, it might have been a little inspired by the life and times of Tiger Woods. And so that was a way to write about a Tiger-like figure. And so Rory's, he kind of completes the trilogy, right? Like he's a star on the same magnitude as those other 2 players. He is now ascending the list of all-time greats. I mean, him and Tiger are in 2 very exclusive clubs, back-to-back Masters and the career Grand Slam. And in some ways, both Tiger and Phil, their lives have gone sideways because of addiction and greed and scandal and vice. And Rory carries himself with a certain grace, and I think he's had, an admirable life growing up in the spotlight. He certainly had his missteps, and it's all in the book, but ultimately I think it's a feel-good story, and it might be a little bit of a nice palate cleanser after, going so deep into Phil's world and then getting into this sort of existential battle for the soul of the professional game, between Live Golf and the PGA Tour. So, I mean, there was a lot of reasons, but ultimately I've always been drawn to Rory, and it just seemed like he's now of a stature that somebody's got to write a book about him. It turned out to be me.
Yeah, and I'm always drawn, not fully understanding your profession when the word unauthorized biography is included. I mean, this is one where even I think last time we spoke about Phil, you had the book about Phil Mickelson. He was on some level, I believe, a contributor for you authoring that book about him. But Rory didn't really want any part of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of three ways to do it. There's authorized, where you're going to have a relationship with the subject. They're going to have some editorial control. You might have a business relationship where you share some of the money. Like, I would never do that. I'm never going to let anyone tell me how to write a book. There's unauthorized, where you go kind of rogue and just do whatever you want, and they don't participate. And then there's kind of middle ground with cooperation, where they don't have editorial control, but they sit for interviews. And obviously I was hoping that Rory would sit with me. He declined, which is his prerogative. I mean, I've had a lot of access to Rory through the years, just like I did to Phil. Not to spoil anything, but the Rory book begins. We're sitting on a private jet together, flying across China. When he announced his big Nike deal back in the day, I went to Abu Dhabi for the announcement and hung out with him there. And so, I've had access, but his time has a certain value. Since he was not going to get any of the money and have any editorial control, he just decided he didn't want to sit for the interviews. And that was fine. He's had such a public life. I mean, he's done over 1,000 press conferences in his career. I read the transcripts to every single one, which was a little mind numbing, but there's always nuggets. He's done 1 million podcasts. I listened to all of them. I read every magazine story. So as a biographer, you can pull from a lot of different sources. And of course I did a ton of my own reporting, interviewing folks, going to his hometown. All the conversations I've had with Rory through the years, I had all those notes and all those stories, and I could draw from those. So it was fine. I didn't begrudge Rory that, but and in some ways maybe it's easier, because if we sit down and have these long interviews, he's a very charming guy. There's a certain magnetism to him. You start to see things his way, and you start to see the world through his eyes. And I think as a biographer, it almost helps to have a certain amount of distance from your subject.
Right. And I think when you were, on the circuit promoting the book, you told a story, though, that not only was he maybe not into it or didn't see the value in it from his perspective on how much time, but he was pretty resentful of it, wasn't he? And this was after he won the Masters. I know you've told the story before, and the cussing is fine on this platform. But he kind of called you out in front of a bunch of people at the U.S. Open last year, didn't he?
Yeah, so I was deep into the process. At that point, I've been working on the book for over a year. And of course, it's getting back to Rory. I'm calling everyone in his circle. I've been to his hometown, like all these things. So I think the book got into his head a little bit. And we all saw after last year's Masters in 25, he kind of had this existential crisis, and he had climbed the mountaintop, and he had to kind of figure out, where do I go from here? And so he was in a weird headspace. So Friday at the U.S. Open at Oakmont, I went out to talk to his manager. I've had good, kind of lines of communication with him. And Rory's warming up for the second round. I mean, his tee time's in half an hour. And so I'm whispering to his manager, Sean O'Flaherty, and I hear, hey, Alan, and familiar kind of lilt. And I look up, and it's Rory, and he's like staring us down, and he goes, "Fuck off." And Sean and I were both so shocked, we kind of froze, and I didn't move. I didn't say anything. And then, Roy takes a few steps in our direction, and he says, "Seriously, fuck off." And there was a packed grandstand behind me. There were NBC cameras everywhere. So it didn't seem like we were going to have a productive conversation. So I wandered away. But then 2 days later in the parking lot on Sunday after his final round, I waited for him. And I basically was like, "Bro, what was that all about? Like, that was just weird." And so what he said was that, "It pisses me off. You're making money off my name. Rory has enough money, and there's not that much money in books anyway. It's not about the money. It's just about control, because he's used to having total control over his life and his public image. And he knew he'd have no control over this book. And for a guy like Rory, that's unsettling. He's not used to not having, being in control of the power dynamic. And so, that was how it played out. This is all in the book. And then, but there's a happy ending. I don't know if you caught this part. So when Rory comes to Pebble Beach a couple months ago as defending champ, I live nearby. So I had just gotten, early copies of the book. So I had breakfast with his manager. I gave Sean a couple copies. And on Sunday night, as I'm walking to my car after writing my tournament story, it's dark. The place is cleared out now. It's, 3 hours after the final putt dropped. I actually just bumped into Rory completely randomly, and we had a laugh about that. And he said, I read the first chapter. It was good. It made me laugh. And that's that's got all the spicy stuff in it, really. So I think I'm in a good place with Rory. But ultimately, he's not who I'm writing the book for. I mean, it's for golf fans. And so on a human level, it's nice if he likes it. But, my job is to be clear-eyed and to just present the totality of the person, good, bad, and otherwise. And I think that's what I did. In Rory's case, he doesn't have the demons that Phil did and does. And so it has a little different tenor, and that was fine. I don't want to write the same book over and over. Rory's journey has been pretty incredible, and I was happy to celebrate it.
I think what you said about Rory too, some people might listen and think, well, that, it sounds like kind of a dickhead. But, I also think that there's a side of Rory, even that his fans sometimes are surprised by, that he has a real edge to them. Like, he really does. I think if you go and scroll, for whatever it's worth, on social media, if you go scroll after the Masters, or even during the Masters or beforehand, there were people that were objecting to the fact that he skipped Houston and Valero and some of the tournaments beforehand because he can go and he could practice at Augusta. And he would fly up there and practice. And he's become a little bit of a polarizing figure, which, if you're not a golf fan and you're not in the weeds with the PGA Tour and Live Golf, maybe you don't fully understand all of that. But he really, I'm always still surprised to see how many people, like, how much online abuse he seemingly takes for everything that he does. I always wonder where that's coming from when I see it.
Yeah, I mean, the post-Masters discourse is so dumb. Like, when have we ever denigrated someone for preparing and for trying their hardest and like building a game plan and executing it? Like, it's nonsense. Like, every golfer can go into Augusta early and play practice rounds. The fact that Rory took advantage of that should be celebrated. That's how much he cares. And so that whole talking point is ridiculous. But your point is correct. Like, I would say 5 years ago, Rory was basically universally beloved. He was like this little leprechaun, and everyone appreciated him, and the way he played the game and the grace he carried himself with. The arrival of Live Golf and some other things too, Rory just has become more polarizing, and that's a good thing for someone in my position. It's more material to work with, and he's become more complex, and a lot of it stems from Rory's not afraid to speak his mind. He has a very rare candor for a superstar athlete, and he's passionate, and he has a strong moral compass. And so, yeah, he took a very hard line against Live Golf. He made it intensely personal. He trolled Greg Norman and Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau, and he blew up his whole friendship with Sergio Garcia. He'd been a groomsman at Sergio's wedding, and they stopped talking because, Rory was taking so many shots at Live Golf in the media. And so, yeah, no doubt he lost a few fans over that. I think he also gained some because he became kind of the conscience of the sport in a lot of people's eyes, and he became certainly the spokesman for the PGA Tour. The commissioner, Jay Monahan, was just hiding out in his office. He was afraid to talk to reporters, and Rory was on the firing lines every day, every week. And so I don't think Rory has any regrets. He felt very strongly about that. And he had been 3 years before Live Golf arrived. The Saudis first got into golf with something called the Saudi International. It was a tournament on the European Tour that debuted in January of 2019. That was 3 months after Jamal Khashoggi, a U.S. resident and a writer for the Washington Post, was assassinated by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And the entire Western world was repudiating the Saudis, and they were backing out of business deals. They were refusing to go over there for public appearances. the only friends they had were in professional golf. The European Tour didn't cancel the tournament because of these crazy appearance fees. All the top Americans and other golfers showed up and, posed for the cameras and pretended like nothing had happened. But Rory refused to go, even though he was offered the biggest appearance fee. And he said, I think there's a morality to this, and I want to be on the right side of history. And so he has a pretty black and white view of the world, and I commend him for that, because money is so corrosive. We've seen that in professional golf here the last 4 to 5 years, and Rory is never tempted. He not only carried the PGA Tour, he also carries the European Tour on his back, and it's going to be an important part of his legacy. He helped save the PGA Tour and fend off Liv. And so, but yeah, to your question, he generates emotion. That's a good thing. I mean, that you want that in your big stars. And obviously, if you're writing a book about the guy, it's helpful.
And by the way, I mean, it does feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, that he is on the right side of this, because the PGA Tour is I think in a much better position. Now, Liv's going to have all the money, but nobody watches it. And you already have now defections where players are saying, former PGA Tour players who left are saying, hey, I'm out of here. I want to go back and go play on the other tour. And Rory has become an important figure, like a really powerful figure in golf, that he's helping reshape the whole tour, is he not?
Yeah, no, very well said. I mean, the PGA Tour has won the war. And Rory helped reshape the product on the fly. What Live Golf got right was that you need fewer numbered tournaments, and you need all your stars to play in each of them. And the tour had this bloated schedule of 50 tournaments. The top players played in maybe 20 of them. And so you had all these bad tournaments that devalued the product. And, Rory took control of the whole process and created, with some help from Monahan and from Tiger Woods, this model of these signature events, which is smaller fields, more money, all the top players show up. And they've been a home run. The TV ratings are through the roof. The top guys are now making so much money. None of them have gone to Live Golf since John Rahm at the end of 2023. And they've held on to their stars. And by reshaping the structure, they've gone from this 501c3, which is like this nonprofit, to a for-profit business. Now they've taken $1 billion plus in private equity money. So the tour is better capitalized than it's ever been. It has a stronger product. All the stars are staying home. And now, as guys age out of their contracts on Live, they're coming back. We've seen that with Koepka and now Patrick Reed. And so Rory's vision of the tour worked. Like, he helped change the whole landscape. And he was also, after the framework agreement came down and sort of the bureaucrat stabbed him in the back and said, no, these guys we said were the enemy, now they're our friends and we want their money. Rory took a very pragmatic, nuanced view and said, okay, I feel like a sacrificial lamb, but if I can take myself out of this personally, I understand that this puts the tour in a stronger position. Like, we can't fight these guys. They have all the money. So let's try and make peace with them. Let's try and partner with them. And that took a lot of grace, because he had been sold out in a profound way. And this conciliatory tone that he created, that helped bring back Brooks Koepka. That helped bring back Patrick Reed. Even though Rory and Patrick have no love for each other, Rory understands it makes the tour better. It strengthens their product. It weakens Live. And so it's pretty magnanimous position for a guy who was sacrificed at the altar by the PGA Tour. So he's been a great diplomat and sort of ambassador through all of this.
And then, by the way, correct me if I'm wrong, but that also put him at odds with some of his fellow PGA Tour members, right? There were guys that didn't like that Rory was sort of like, yeah, let's bring these guys back into the fold. Other players were not as forgiving as Rory McIlroy was. Maybe forgiving isn't the right word, but they weren't as willing to say, the good outweighs the bad in the situation.
Yeah. I mean, so it's really Tiger and it's Patrick Cantlay. They kind of hijacked the PGA Tour board after Rory resigned, because after the framework agreement in June 6, 2023, he said, okay, I've given this fight everything I've had for over a year. Now I'm going to let you guys figure it out. And Tiger and Cantlay don't want a deal. They don't want the Live guys to come home. Like, they're both bitter. Tiger's just kind of this Old Testament personality, and he feels like they betrayed the tour. They betrayed his legacy. He just doesn't want them. Cantlay turned down $75 million from Live, so he's bitter that these guys got the money and he didn't. And so they've been obstructionists to this whole deal. And yeah, it's really, Tiger and Rory became really close friends. They co-founded this Tomorrow Golf League. They have other business interests. But this is how ruthless Tiger is. He blackballed Rory from coming back onto the board because they tried to get him back in 2024 to say, okay, we're in this quagmire. We can't get this deal done. You are the voice of reason here. We need you to come back and help us finish this deal. And Tiger and Cantlay prevented that from happening. And so even though Rory's been there for Tiger in a lot of ways, like Tiger stabbed him in the back again. And so, poor Rory's just tried to do the right thing for the game. And he's taking bullets left and right. But to his credit, he's still handled himself with a lot of grace through all of this.
One of the great stories about the 2025 Masters where he completes the Grand Slam is, he got off to a disastrous start in that round. And like a lot of people, I was watching that and thinking, again. He ends up winning the tournament, right? This incredible moment. It was so cinematic. 2026, fast forward a year, like another double bogey early, third, fourth hole. You're like, okay, he's dropping down the leaderboard and he figures it out. Like, I wonder, what happened in 2025, even not playing your best golf, but mentally keeping it together, right? And not just deteriorating out there on the golf course and completely melting. How that plays into 2026. There's no real way to answer this, Alan, but I wonder if he doesn't pull through in 2025, does he win in 2026, which, we'll never really know the answer to.
Well, I mean, if he didn't win it in 25, I mean, I don't know if you come back from that. Even as resilient as Rory has been his whole career, like he's taken a lot of punches on the chin and his knees will wobble, but he'll keep coming at you. His resilience and his mental toughness are wildly underrated. And, he's died 1,000 deaths on the golf course. And I think at this point, he doesn't get rattled. I mean, you mentioned that double on 4, then on this year on Sunday, then he bogeys 6. He's 3 shots out of the lead with 12 holes to go. Other guys are playing great. He's just barely hanging on. And that was the time when most guys would have just checked out. The moment was too big for them. And Rory just dug so deep. And, for the next couple hours, he played brilliant golf. I mean, he played the next 11 holes in 4 under and hit a lot of great shots and stood up there on that 12th tee, which is the scariest shot in championship golf. And he flagged it and just played with so much determination and so much courage. And in some ways, it's his most impressive major championship victory because he never had his A game. And we've seen him overwhelm golf courses with his driver, and he was never driving it that well. He just accessed his genius for just enough on time on Sunday to bring it home. But even once he got in the lead, that approach on 17, that drive on 18, he was still fighting his swing a little bit. But when he absolutely had to have it, when everything was going wrong and he was about to blow the Masters, he just found it just long enough. It was super gritty performance, and projecting forward, it really is tantalizing. If Rory can win the green jacket when he's not at his best, we know he's going to find his driver swing. That's the foundation of his dominance. One thing I'm not worried about is Rory driving the golf ball. So when he gets that back, and now his putter and his wedges are so dialed, and he has his belief, and it's fun to think about where he goes from here.
Indeed. 36 years old, he's married, he's got kids, so we don't have to worry about, some life-changing events, potentially 6 majors already, and in great physical shape. I mean, as good as anybody. And like you said, a guy whose moral compass, at least temporarily, we would say we believe in here today. Alan, appreciate it. Thank you for doing this. As mentioned, really looking forward to the book. Huge Rory fan. I know you go a lot into his background, and we hear so much about him coming from blue collar situation, and a little bit unlike a lot of the country club silver spoon players that we see a lot. Tons of personality, and I think your point about this is like the personality of the tour now. I don't know when the next. I know you've said you're tongue in cheek, but what's the next great biography going to be in golf? It's this guy. He's the guy that's really holding it up at this point.
Yeah, and who's next? If you look at Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, they're basically the same person. Right. Grew up in affluence at private clubs, married their college sweetheart. They've had the same swing coach and caddy and agent their whole lives. Like they've just had much smaller lives. Rory has lived large. I mean, he really has. And he has chewed the scenery. He's been at it now for close to 2 decades. And he's just a colorful person. He just has fun. He just moves through the world. And there's no other characters like him coming up. Like, I don't know, maybe Bryson, but he's kind of awkward and weird, and people don't have the same personal affection, and he doesn't let you into his heart. You know, he's very secretive. Like he won that live event recently, and he's like, oh, I've just had the hardest week. I've been through so much, but he wouldn't say what it was. So then you can't really get invested in the victory. You know, Rory tells you, like, he lets you in. Like, you know, when he busts up with his fiance, when the wedding invitations have gone out, like, he gets up and talks about it. And when, you know, when he has a falling out with his agent, like, they sue each other, they go to the Irish High Court, they're on the front steps, like, you know, basically trading rhetorical blows. Like, he lives publicly. And so it's a lot more fun to chronicle.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, some of the stuff with Liv and some of the other golfers and Bryson DeChambeau and some of the stories, or even from the Ryder Cup, are just, they're spectacular. And they're all in the book. Rory, The Heartache and Triumph of Golf's Most Human Superstar. Alan Shipnuck, thank you very much for doing this. We appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me. Great chat.
Okay, there you go. Great chat. You're going to order the book, or you're just going to borrow mine?
I'm definitely going to borrow yours. Rory McIlroy, the last interesting golfer.
Maybe. I mean, I know it's kind of sad to say, and it's a little bit self-serving if you're Alan Shipnuck, but, you know, there might be a little bit of truth to that. Because like I said, the rest of these guys, they all kind of just look the same and sound the same. So maybe. Could be. I don't know.
One of those moments, Darren, where you and I pulled over one day to run into the waterfront because we wanted to watch Tiger. I mean, for different reasons. But,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do remember, like, I will say this. I remember year after year after year, because part of the, you know, the story obviously with Rory is that, you know, he won a major, like his before the 2025 Masters, it was 2014, the PGA. And like, he waited 11 years, and every year we would have Steve Sands on the show for the Masters and be like, oh, is it this year for Rory? Is it this year? And you start thinking to yourself, am I just going to ask this question for the rest of my life? Like, is he ever going to win this tournament? And you started thinking he wasn't. Maybe it just wasn't going to happen because the career Grand Slam's really hard. And then he did it. And now that he's won back-to-back, it's just like this. It's amazing. It's just like this incredible story. Anyhow, do you read or do you do audiobooks? My wife is recently, as like a big reader, she has recently started going to audiobooks, Marty, and I don't know what to make of that.
do I read? What kind of question was that? Yes, I read. I don't do audiobooks. I love to read. This will surprise you about me. I don't watch videos. As much as I spend most of my life posting them and shooting them, I'm a big reader. I love to read.
What are you reading?
I'm not reading anything right now because I don't have any damn time. I have zero time. But
okay, so you're a big reader who doesn't read.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Got it. What's the last book you read? Anything interesting? Or what kind of books do you read?
I like Patricia Cornwell. I like forensic mysteries, forensic crimes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good.
What's my last sports book? That's a better question. I read the press box notes.
Always good.
Oh yeah. Some details
good for the mental stimulation of it all.
That's good stuff. Oh, Darren, I don't want to forget this. Okay. Now don't forget, thanks to all of you who are watching here right now on Marty Time TV, but you can also, Darren, tell them all the different ways they can consume this show, including, well, right there's a QR code right there for section 1904. So Darren does a great job, putting detailed accounts of what we talked about on the show, as well as, other things that you're doing with SDFC, on Substack, Apple, Spotify. And I don't know what's happening, why I can't link this to my YouTube podcast. I'm going to hopefully have it up there later on this evening. Do you believe me? Do you believe that I will fix my tech issues?
Where there's a will, there's a way. So I think that we will get this accomplished. Yeah. I mean, usually what I do is I just take these shows that we do, and sometimes I'll do separate stuff on my own if it's like soccer specific and we can't coordinate to get it up on Marty Time TV. I will just put a post up there on Substack. I will shoot it out to Apple Podcasts. I will shoot it out to Spotify. You can also just click the link, watch it on the Substack app, which is great because you can just have the app right there on your mobile device. So when I do a little write-up, trying to get my writing skills. So, even in a world where even Marty doesn't read as much as she used to, I would like to work on my writing just a tad bit. It's a good mental exercise for me. So I do a little write-up on the shows and I make them available. And, we try to put it out. And the best part is we email it directly to you. So that way you don't have to hunt around. Is it on YouTube today? Is it over here today? Where is it today? We will just email it to you. So that way in your very busy life, the content will be waiting for you in your inbox. So you can subscribe, and there's a Marty Time TV tab on the front page that you can click on, and you can catch the latest videos from Marty. So it's sort of just like a hub of connectivity for us and our joint venture. So
a lot going on.
Either these shows, us shooting the shit with AJ Caswell about Liverpool and Barcelona, neither of whom won, or if you just want the latest on what's happening with Friar Territory or this show in podcast form, do check it out. Scan the QR code or just go search it around on Substack.
Yes, there will be a show tomorrow, Darren. I'm not sure how crazy your schedule is. I know you have a lot going on. Maybe you can hopefully hop on for a few minutes. I do want to mention that I am tomorrow at Petco Park is Autism Acceptance Night, and that's something that's personal to me. I know to a lot of people, a lot of our listeners and viewers, and so I'm glad the Padres do that. The importance of sensory rooms, because when you think about it, right, Darren, think about how much we all noise and the wave and applause, and people love fireworks, right? You'd be surprised how many kids do not. So the Padres have done a great job, Darren, making sure that they are catering to people who are on the spectrum of autism. So tomorrow at Petco Park, Autism Appreciation Night, I will have a conversation with someone about that, just what the different things the Padres are doing to make it inclusive for all. So you can look for that on tomorrow's show. When I go to Petco Park later on, is there anyone you want me to ask? Are we done? Vedder, Korn? What's the musician I should ask about? Let's go.
Guns N' Roses. I saw that they're playing at Snapdragon Stadium at some point.
They are?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool.
I couldn't tell you who's in the band today. I have no idea. Is Axl Rose still a part of that thing, or is Slash a part of that thing? I do not know the answer to that.
Slash.
I think there was a time where I really would have been excited. I actually have seen Guns N' Roses live, but
okay, cool.
It's literally 30 years ago. So I'm not so sure that, I don't know. I don't know that I feel all that compelled. Although out of curiosity to see what kind of person goes to such a thing, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, maybe just do some 90s, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains to see, hold up pictures for Fernando Tatis Jr. and see if he can identify any of them.
Dude, he's going to want no part of this conversation. So I'm good.
Yeah. I don't blame him.
Cool. All right, Darren. Good stuff.
You want to talk about Dianna Russini at all?
Do we have time?
Probably not. Maybe we save that for a different show. I think people would actually really be curious your opinion about that.
It didn't matter. She had no chance of going back. She had zero, whether or not those pictures were taken, whether or not there were, 6 other people that have not come forward to say they were there. She could not have gone back to that job. She could not have gone. Imagine her walking into the Patriots locker room. Is any player talking to her, knowing that she's a cozy relationship with Mike Vrabel? And this is a different era that we live in right now, Darren. 20 years ago, she could probably escape this. No social media, zero chance of escaping that. Players, other media members who weren't buying it, she had no chance. I'm surprised maybe she resigned. Maybe you resigned to hope that the Athletic investigation just ends. The New York Times investigation ends. They are, parent company, but not surprising. She had no way she could go back. No way. And she was their top. She was a great insider too. But just people talk. And imagine her trying to get information from another coach. How is that going to go? And it's impossible for her to walk into any locker room.
Okay, let me take a different approach here, and It's funny that I'm taking this approach. No repercussion for Mike Vrabel?
No.
I mean, Mike Vrabel hasn't exactly proven that he was there with buddies either.
Oh no!
So what sort of standard is he going to be held to? Because if what people presume is accurate about her gaining information, well, whatever her methodology was, she was getting information. At least the theory from this coach. So, what do we say about him?
Because journalism has a standard of how you get the information, and a head coach has no standard as to how you get your message out there. There is
Especially
no
not in the
standard.
Patriots organization.
I mean,
this owner was the guy who was wrapped up in
yeah,
the whole massage parlor deal.
What's Robert
down
Kraft?
in Florida.
Is Robert Kraft going to penalize Mike Vrabel? Really? No, you can't do. You can't do that. He got off with no repercussion. Robert Kraft
got off.
What happened?
Good choice of words. I just think, I understand, that there will be some.
She couldn't have gone back to her
professionally,
job.
but like he's just going to be like, oh, whatever. I mean, he was leaking information apparently. If we're going to say that she was using this method to gain information, then somebody on the other side of it was giving her information.
But I would imagine a lot of head coaches leak information.
Sure.
That's you put your message out there a certain way. You do that by design.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the Patriots or anyone's gonna have an issue with him leaking information, because that's what head coaches, that's what they do. Now, if he were leaking organization about Robert Kraft, that's a little bit different, right? Or something damaging. But coaches, managers, players, they leak information, agents all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a standard. No, the Athletic is saying they have a standard. There's a standard for journalists, and she 1,000% crossed the line, because none of us are believing that they just happen to end up at the same place, miles away from the combine, and the 6 of their friends have not come forward.
Yeah, again, I'm not defending. I'm just saying, like she has lost her job as a result of this.
Yep.
Whether it is her terms or her choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Mike Vrabel's family situation or home situation will be impacted by this, but professionally, nothing.
Professionally, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting how he is going to address.
You think Mike Vrabel didn't know that this was wrong? Like he doesn't know that it's wrong to sleep with a reporter and give her information?
They're going to see that's a personal
Right.
issue, and probably not a team issue.
Do you think though that a team would be right to have an issue with that? Would a team be right to have a problem with that?
Does the NFL have a standard that you are not allowed to have personal relationships with reporters?
The NFL has no standards.
Oh, that's the difference. But the Athletic and the New York Times, they do. Whether you're covering sports or politics, they are supposed to have that standard.
They're supposed to.
They're supposed to, yes.
They're supposed to. Again, I just think it's, it is a bit imbalanced on the surface. Those situations are different, and I think you're saying everything the right way. But, if I were running an organization, I'd be like, wow, my head coach, at least the way we're coming up with this scenario in our head, my head coach is sleeping with reporters and giving them information.
Right.
Am I comfortable with that? Like, I don't know. But again, when my owner is Robert Kraft, he's probably like, well, who am I to say anything here? Like,
exactly.
I mean, geez, I'm, down there doing my deal down in Jupiter, Florida. So what am I going to say?
And you know what's so interesting about Mike Vrabel? And I don't remember the name of this reporter, but he was being praised by like a lot of national media types, because every single time he has a press conference, he would always defer to the female reporter, and not Russini, but he was like, people like, oh, that's great. Good for Vrabel. He respects women. He's not, he understands the importance and how difficult the job is for female journalists. He always gives the first question to a female reporter. That's going to be looked at differently now. He respects reporters, and he respects reporters. Allegedly.
Wow. The NFL, just like no morals whatsoever.
No, absolutely not. By the way, when is Roger Goodell's next press conference? Who's going to ask that question?
What's he going to say? What's he going to say? All right, Marty, that's a wrap for me. I gotta go hate watch some Champions League.
Okay. I just took a bite. Can you go ahead and close the show?
All right, that'll do it. Thank you very much to the all-new Jamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. We do appreciate that, as always. If watching something on YouTube isn't for you, we have an alternative to it. It's called the Section 1904 Podcast. If you're listening on the Section 1904 Podcast and you would like to watch Marty eat during this conversation, or see what it is that we look like while we're doing this, and see our facial expressions and the emotion that we pour into the show day in, day out, you can watch on Marty Time TV. You can go find it and subscribe on YouTube. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And be sure to check out the newest Friar territory, where we go deep on Lucas Giolito and his agent hovering around some of these injured pitching staffs like a buzzard over a carrier. So be on the lookout for that. We'll do it again soon. Thanks, everybody.
First off, stand up.
I'm just gonna do it because you have way more years than me in the show.
That's right. Repeta. Hey, coming off first week of the season, Fernando, how do you feel the energy of the team is building as the season is progressing?
Feel great.
Una palabra nada más? Nice, that's how I would do it. How do you feel that the offense and the pitching staff are, working together and blending and picking each other up? You see how, the staff gives up some runs, the offense answers back. The offense doesn't. The pitching staff throws up some zeros. How do you feel like you guys are working together so far? 15 games or 16 games, however we've played during the season.
Yeah, we're working together very good.